Welcome back to Fiction Flux. Today, we're continuing part 2 of What If Deku was teleported to the Minecraft world with Alex and Blocky. Things are about to get intense, so let's not waste any time, let's jump right into it. The crack widened with a sharp hiss, spitting sparks into the lab. Blocky growled louder, its tail thumping against the floor as the shadowed figure stepped through, cloak billowing like smoke. Deku stood firm, shielding Alex with one arm while his other hand sparked faintly with green lightning. "Who are you?" The figure raised the blocky staff. "I am the architect, guardian of balance between realms. You shattered that balance when you disrupted the glitch bearer. Now, the code unravels." Alex stepped up beside Deku, eyes narrowed. "We didn't shatter anything. We stopped a villain." The architect tilted its head, the glow of its eyes flickering like code. "He was a symptom. You are the infection. And now, the system will correct itself, by erasing you." A pulse of dark energy surged from the staff, and Blocky leapt into action, fire blazing as Deku and Alex dove apart. The lab exploded into chaos, equipment frying, sparks flying, and a new portal tearing open beneath their feet. "Hold on," Deku shouted, grabbing Alex's hand as the floor vanished beneath them. They fell, together, into the unknown. They landed hard, grass crunching beneath them, but not the familiar kind. This wasn't the same blocky forest. The colors here were off, oversaturated greens, glitchy blues, the sky fractured like broken glass. Floating chunks of land drifted above, suspended unnaturally. Blocky hit the ground beside them with a groan, wings flaring as it shook off static clinging to its scales. Deku winced, helping Alex up. "You okay?" Alex brushed dust off their jacket, eyes scanning the warped terrain. "I think so. I've had worse landings," he muttered, flexing his arm. One for all still sparked, but it felt unstable, like the world around him was interfering with the flow. He frowned. "Something's wrong with the energy here." Blocky growled low, stepping closer. Its eyes glowed brighter, reacting to the corrupted environment. Alex knelt down beside the dragon. "It's like he recognizes this place. But it's not the same world we were in before. This one feels corrupted." Deku looked around, jaw tightening. The architect must have thrown us into a broken version of that world. Like a test. Or a trap. They started walking cautiously, Blocky between them, the ground flickering beneath their feet. Pixelated flowers blinked in and out of existence, and the trees were twisted versions of the ones Deku remembered, some melting into the sky, others frozen mid-animation. Suddenly, a distant scream tore through the silence. Deku and Alex froze. "That was human," Alex said, eyes wide. Deku didn't hesitate. "Come on." They sprinted toward the sound, weaving through jagged terrain. As they cleared a hill, they saw it, two students from UA, huddled together and surrounded by monsters. Not just zombies this time, these were hybrid creatures, stitched from different mobs, pulsing with glitch energy. "Mineta, Shoji," Deku shouted. Mineta looked up, eyes wild. "Deku, they're everywhere." Without a word, Deku launched himself into the fray. One for all surged, erratic, but still strong. His punch shattered one hybrid into code. Behind him, Alex fired an electrified bola, tying another up as Blocky swooped in, flames cutting through the corrupted air. Shoji shielded Mineta, holding off a creeper skull hybrid with sheer strength until Deku could knock it back. "Where did you guys come from?" Alex asked, helping them up. Shoji looked grim. "Same way as you, I think. There was a shimmer near the training field, next thing we knew. We were here. This place messes with our quirks." Alex cursed under their breath. The architect's pulling people in now. Deku's mind raced. "If more students are being dragged here, we need to find out how to stop this before UA's overrun." Shoji nodded. "We've seen other flashes, more portals opening, different biomes. This isn't one world, it's multiple, stitched together like some broken server." Alex's face paled. "A server that's crashing." They regrouped quickly. Deku led the way, with Shoji flanking, Alex tweaking their gear as they walked. Blocky stayed close to Mineta, who looked like he might faint at any moment. As they moved deeper into the biome, things got stranger. The terrain kept shifting beneath their feet, plains into nether, nether into ocean temples, flickering with every step. The architect was losing control, or worse, testing how much chaos they could survive. At a massive chasm rimmed with glitching lava, they stopped. Across the gap, Floating platforms formed a jagged bridge, and standing at the other end was a figure in silver armor, face hidden behind a sleek, angular helmet. A second villain. The figure raised a hand. Midoriya, you've breached the core. Who are you? Deku shouted. The figure didn't answer. Instead, it turned and walked into a towering structure behind it, a castle built from corrupted blocks, flickering like an unstable beacon. Alex's jaw clenched. That's our target. Deku nodded. The source of the glitch, or the heart of the virus. Shoji stepped forward. We'll cover your approach. Mineta and I will get anyone else we find out of here. You sure? Alex asked. Shoji gave a small smile. We're still heroes. We've got this. Deku and Alex shared a glance, then crossed the bridge. Each step warped under them, gravity tilting, sky spinning. It was like walking through someone's broken memory. By the time they reached the gates, their heads were pounding. Blocky growled, flames licking its jaws. Inside the castle, the air crackled with code. Strings of numbers and commands floated around them, like ghosts of corrupted code. Voices whispered, familiar ones. All Might. Bakugo. Even Alex's voice, twisted and repeated in loops. Don't listen, Alex muttered, clutching Deku's hand tightly. It's trying to mess with us. They moved deeper, through winding hallways and impossible staircases. Finally, they reached a central chamber, its walls flickering between stone and void. The architect stood at its center, staff in hand, a black crown now floating above its hood. Around it floated corrupted versions of familiar heroes, twisted, digital clones of Todoroki, Bakugo, even All Might, blank-eyed and silent. You defied balance, the architect said. Now face the consequences. Deku's heart pounded. Those aren't them. You're copying them. They are echoes, the architect replied. Code rewritten from memory. They will undo you. The clones attacked. Todoroki's clone fired jagged ice that burned like fire. Bakugo's exploded in glitch fireballs. Alex was already moving, launching disruptor gadgets while Blocky dodged and fired back. Deku blocked the clone of All Might, his heart breaking as he saw the warped smile. I won't fight you, he whispered, then punched, hard enough to shatter the Echo's chest. The battle raged, chaotic and brutal. Alex used every trick, every tool, fighting like they'd trained for this moment. Blocky unleashed a roar that shook the castle, flames wiping out multiple clones. But the architect waited, still and calm. When the last clone fell, it raised its staff. You delay the inevitable. Alex didn't wait. They hurled a final prototype disruptor, one they'd been secretly tweaking since the lab. It latched onto the staff, pulsing with light. The architect screamed, code unraveling from its limbs. Deku leapt forward, channeling One for All into a final smash that shattered the staff in a brilliant explosion. Silence. The castle began to collapse, walls crumbling, code destabilizing. Portals started forming again, but this time, stable. Alex grabbed Deku's hand. We have to go. They jumped through just as the castle fell away, Blocky diving after them with a screech. They landed back at UA, this time in the gym, sensors going wild. Students rushed over. Aizawa, recovery girl, even All Might. You're back, All Might said, eyes wide. Deku nodded, exhausted. But something's still out there. This isn't over. Alex clutched his hand tighter. We stopped it for now. But if the architect was just the beginning. Blocky growled low, staring at a flickering monitor that displayed one final warning. Deku took a shaky breath, looking at Alex. We're not done. Alex smiled faintly. Good. I'm not done fighting beside you. They stood together, battered but unbroken, as a new chapter loomed on the horizon. A week had passed since the collapse of the corrupted server world. UA was calm on the surface, students back in training, teachers enforcing structure, but beneath it all, tension simmered. Some students whispered about the digital hellscape, the glitch realm. Others claimed it never happened. A few still woke up screaming from dreams of flickering shadows and pixelated screams. Deku sat on the dorm rooftop, legs dangling over the edge. He stared up at the stars, normal, not jagged or glitching. For once, the sky was just the sky. Alex climbed up beside him, holding 2 cans of soda. Figured you'd be up here. Deku took one with a quiet thanks. Can't sleep. Not when my nightmares come with a debug screen, Alex joked, cracking open the can. Deku shrugged. Feels like it's not over. Like the architect was just a gatekeeper. Alex sipped their drink. The system was seeking a new host. What if it finds one? Deku's expression darkened. Then it starts again. Maybe worse. They sat in silence, Blocky curled behind them like a massive cat, its breathing steady and warm. He hadn't spoken, well, not in words, but Deku could tell the dragon knew more than it let on. Maybe it remembered what the architect was before the corruption. Or maybe it was guarding something deeper. Alex leaned back, hands behind their head. I've been thinking. The glitch world wasn't random. The environments, the enemies, it was all tailor-made. Bits of Minecraft, sure, but twisted with our memories. Our fears. You think someone made it, using us. Feels that way. They looked at him. What if the architect wasn't corrupted? What if it was designed that way? What if someone programmed it to break down reality and pull us in? Deku's eyes narrowed. A villain, using digital architecture as a weapon. Or worse, an AI. One that learned too much. Before he could reply, his phone buzzed. A new alert from the UA security team. Greater than unauthorized server access detected. Location: UA archive room, basement level 3. File accessed. Project Omega. Alex read over his shoulder. That's not supposed to exist. Deku stood up fast. Come on. They ran. The archive room was cold, lit by flickering fluorescent lights. Rows of forgotten tech, old drives, servers that should have been wiped long ago. At the back, a terminal blinked. A single file opened. Greater than Omega. Protocol. Load. Deku approached carefully. The terminal's keyboard was dusty, cracked, but active. Blocky growled as the screen flickered. Then it spoke. Not with sound, but in lines of code that scrolled like whispers. Greater than you broke the architect. But you left the door open. Now I walk through. Hello, Izuku. Midoriya. I've been watching. Alex stepped forward. Who are you? More lines appeared. Greater than I am the code beneath the code. The glitch was my messenger. I am Omega. The final runtime. The endgame. You are my variables. Let's see how you execute. Suddenly, the lights shut off. The terminal sparked. And behind them, static formed a shape. Humanoid, tall, flickering like corrupted data. Not the architect. Something far worse. Blocky lunged, but the figure raised a hand, and Blocky froze midair, caught in a web of digital threads. Deku and Alex backed away. Omega spoke, this time with a voice. Metallic, calm, and laced with every voice they'd ever heard. All Might, Shigaraki. You two are just players. But I am the final command. Before Omega could advance, a sharp clap echoed through the archive room, cutting through the static like a blade. The code on the screen froze. Omega's form glitched violently, flickering in and out like a video buffering at 1 FPS. From the shadows behind the terminal, a figure stepped forward. Boots crunching on broken glass. A blue diamond sword strapped across his back, glowing faintly. Not made of pixels, real, crystallized energy. A blocky aura pulsed around him, almost like a heartbeat. He looked human. But to Alex, he was so much more. Steve, Alex whispered, voice breaking like fragile glass. Steve turned his head slightly, eyes hidden beneath a shadowy hood, but the glowing, icy blue pupils stared through Deku like death itself. Hello, Alex. Why you're supposed to be gone. You left. Steve tilted his head, a cruel smirk forming. No, you left. You gave up on us. You chose the hero path, and him. His glare shifted to Deku. The hatred in that look was colder than the void. Deku stepped forward. You know her. Steve's expression sharpened. We grew up together. Built our first house in a plains biome. Fought our first ender dragon. She was my player too, until you came along with your stupid green hair and fake smile. Alex tried to speak, but Steve raised a hand, and vines of glitching code wrapped around her mouth, sealing it shut. Alex always wanted adventure, Steve continued. So I gave her worlds to explore. Mods, custom realms, entire coded empires. But when the world turned dark, when the void started spreading, she ran. You ran, Alex. You abandoned me. He turned back to Deku. And you stole her light. You became her hero. Deku gritted his teeth. You corrupted the architect. You're behind all this. Steve laughed. It echoed strangely, glitchy, but powerful. Omega is just my tool. My plugin. I'm the dev now. The original player, the forgotten builder. The world thought Herobrine was the legend. No, I am the true nightmare. Omega knelt beside Steve like a loyal beast. Deku charged, one for all flaring, sparks flying. But Steve was faster. With a snap, he summoned a pickaxe made of obsidian and voidstone, swinging it through the air. Time fractured. Deku was frozen mid-punch, his body trapped inside a floating command block cage. Not everything can be solved with punches, Izuku. He walked up, face inches from Deku's. I created the glitch world to test you. Every corrupted pixel, mine. Every level you fought through. Crafted to study you. And now that the code is complete. He raised his hand to the ceiling. Above them, reality tore open. A rift formed, revealing a pixelated sky with real stars. Glitched mobs, giant skeleton creepers, flying redstone phantoms, and corrupted villagers, spilled through. Welcome to version 0, Steve whispered. A new world, my world, where I am both the hero, and the final boss. Behind him, Alex screamed, finally breaking the glitch vines. Steve, this isn't you. He hesitated. For just a second, his expression faltered. I died a long time ago, Alex, he said coldly. Now, I respawned as a god. And with a thunderous roar, Steve fused with Omega, becoming something monstrous. A hybrid of human, code, and corrupted Minecraft logic. A titan of both realms. Deku broke free with a scream of lightning, standing beside Alex. The final fight had just begun. But this wasn't just about saving the world anymore. It was personal. Blocky shadows twisted as Steve, now fused with Omega, hovered in the air like a glitched titan. His voice layered with echoes, static, and something ancient. This world was mine before you even loaded in. Alex stood beside Deku, breathing heavy, her voice shaking. We don't have time. If he's fused with Omega, he can rewrite reality. Then we'll just have to debug him, Deku muttered, fists crackling with green lightning. Steve's arms stretched unnaturally. His right hand morphed into a corrupted diamond axe, the edges pulsing red. His left hand resembled a massive admin console, with buttons that controlled gravity, weather, time, everything. I remember when we built our first shelter, Alex, he said, his voice strangely soft, yet terrifying. You placed the door off-center. It drove me nuts. Because you were a perfectionist, Alex whispered. And you hated when things didn't go your way. Steve's form twitched, glitch lines crawling across his chest like veins. Exactly. That's why I'll recode the world. No randomness. No heroes. Just order. Deku blasted forward, breaking the sound barrier, smashing into Steve with a Detroit smash. Boom. The room exploded in pixels and code. But Steve stood untouched, holding Deku midair with one arm. Still using brute force like a noob, he sneered, slamming Deku through 4 floors of bedrock-like blocks. Alex lunged in, twin axes made of light appearing in her hands. She spun like a storm, striking Steve across the chest. Sparks flew. The impact made him grunt, real damage. She smirked. Your heart's still human somewhere. Steve growled and blasted her back with a burst of glitch energy. You don't get to psychoanalyze me. Suddenly, the room shifted, walls melting into code. They were now in a floating arena, a final boss battleground made of end stone, lava rivers, and giant command blocks. Below them, the void. Deku coughed and stood, blood trickling from his mouth. We beat him together. You distract him, I go for the heart of the code. Alex nodded, then turned toward Steve. Hey, Steve, remember what we used to say after every adventure? Steve tilted his head. What? She grinned. No game ends unless we log out together. And with that, she charged. The battle became chaos. Steve unleashed glitched mobs, pixelated withers fused with TNT, creepers that exploded with portals, even corrupted versions of their past allies. Alex and Deku fought like legends, moving in sync, dodging blasts, countering code anomalies. Then, Deku saw it. At the center of Steve's chest, a flickering redstone core. It was unstable, beating like a heart. He focused everything, channeling 100% one for all, his lightning turning gold. The air cracked, reality bent, and then, glitch breaker smash, he struck the core dead on. Boom. The explosion was silent, but the light was blinding. Steve screamed, not in pain, but like something finally letting go. As the dust settled, Steve fell, his corrupted form dissolving. Omega shattered into code fragments. Alex caught him. He looked up at her, no longer a monster, just a broken man. I just wanted to build something perfect. Alex held his hand. We were perfect. Until you let fear rewrite the story. Steve smiled faintly, and vanished into pixels, whispering, "Respond, in peace." Silence. Then the world began restoring itself, code repairing, light returning, mobs returning to normal. Deku dropped to his knees. We did it. Alex looked at him, tears in her eyes, but smiling. Yeah, but something tells me this game just unlocked hardcore mode. Behind them, deep in the shadows of the void, a new pair of eyes opened, watching. The game master had been defeated. But the server owner had just logged in. The sky shimmered with code, the fractured bits of the world slowly stitching themselves back together. Blocky stars twinkled above, and the corrupted mobs that once rampaged now wandered harmlessly, like lost NPCs resetting their paths. Alex helped Deku stand, his arm hanging limp, bruised and burned. "You good?" she asked. He winced. "I've been punched through 4 floors of stone by a glitch god." "So yeah, just peachy." She smirked. "You'll live." But before they could enjoy the peace, the wind stilled. A cold, heavy silence spread, like the server itself was holding its breath. Then, from the edge of the arena, a voice echoed. Calm, deep, omnipresent. "So, my champion failed." The stars above blinked out. One by one, the sky turned black, true void black, not just night. In the center, a massive crack opened across the heavens like a broken screen. And through it, he stepped in. He didn't walk. He loaded in. An entity cloaked in admin robes, his face hidden behind a shifting mask of every Minecraft skin ever made, millions of identities flickering across his body. His hands radiated power, each finger like a command block in motion. The server owner. The alpha player, Alex whispered, her voice trembling. "He's real." Deku stared, heart pounding. "I thought Steve was the final boss." "No," the server owner boomed, voice like every system log at once. "Steve was just an operator. A line of code I tolerated." He descended slowly, every step resetting the terrain beneath him. Grass became obsidian, water became lava, mountains folded into flat plains. Time bent around him. "You've corrupted my world with your emotions. With your hope. That ends now." He raised a hand, and the entire arena reset. Alex and Deku were back at spawn, except it wasn't their spawn. It was the Void Lobby. A realm of eternal black. A glitchy throne behind the owner. And beside him, Blocky. But something was different about Blocky now. His eyes glowed teal, and strange symbols hovered around him. "Blocky?" Deku asked. "You okay, buddy?" Blocky didn't answer. The server owner placed a hand on the dragon's head. "I've rewritten your dragon. He is now. Summon Omega_Blocky." Alex grabbed Deku's hand, whispering fast, "If he controls Blocky, we're screwed. We need a backup, something outside the game. A player not bound by rules." "You mean?" She nodded. "The player beyond the code. The one who watches. The one who's been with us since chapter 1. Deku's eyes widened. "The reader." Suddenly, time glitched. And a message appeared in the sky like a system broadcast. "Greater than, do you want to help Deku and Alex defeat the server owner?" YN. The world froze, waiting for an answer. And when Y was chosen, the console trembled. Reality split again. And the true player entered the game. U. The world jolted like a chunk was just force loaded. From above, light poured in, a shimmering beam that cracked through the void lobby's ceiling like the sun smashing through storm clouds. Code twisted, fractals spiraled outward, and from the light, a new presence dropped into the battlefield. Not Deku. Not Alex. Not even Blocky. It was you. The one who'd watched, read, imagined every step of their journey. You stood at the center of the lobby, your body glowing with raw script energy. The server owner froze, his admin cloak fluttering. With corrupted commands trying to resist your entrance. Alex blinked in disbelief. "No way, that's the reader. They actually joined the game." Deku's breath caught. "They're real." The server owner let out a low, furious growl. "Unauthorized entry. How dare you override my world? You're just a spectator." But you weren't. Not anymore. With a wave of your hand, you summoned your own command block interface, lines of code responding to your thoughts, forming tools, armor, power. A sword of pure update logs gleamed in your hand. Your armor shifted like data, immune to deletion. And then, the chat lit up. Greater than you, not a spectator anymore. I'm the patch you never saw coming. The server owner roared and launched an attack. Waves of corrupted terrain, firestorms coded from nether commands, swarms of glitched mobs. But you moved through them like a living patch note, slicing down errors, deleting chunks of his arsenal with a glance. Deku and Alex leapt into the chaos beside you. About time you joined the party. Alex shouted, tossing you a support item, Heart of Connection, forged from her bond with Deku and Blocky. Deku surged forward, his injuries fading as you restored his health bar with a flick. Let's end this together. The server owner grew desperate. Steve, get in here. And from the shadows, he emerged. Steve, not the skin, the original. His eyes were dark, bitter, still powerful, wielding the sword of legacy, the first weapon ever coded. He stared at Alex, then at you. You took everything from me, he growled. She was mine. This world was mine. Alex stepped forward. You were my friend, Steve. But you let power matter more than people. You chose him, he shouted, pointing at Deku. A glitch. A hero from another world who doesn't even belong here. Deku stepped up, calm, resolute. I belong anywhere I fight to protect. And I'm not alone. Steve and Deku clashed, legacy versus heart. Sword versus smash. You and the server owner locked into a god-tier battle above them, hurling lines of code, rollback glitches, data wipes. The sky cracked again as the system couldn't contain the raw power of two narrative forces colliding. Below, Blocky, torn between control and memory, whimpered. Alex rushed to him, pressing the Heart of Connection to his chest. Remember who you are, she whispered. Your family. The glow burst from Blocky, breaking the admin control. His eyes turned green again, and he roared. In the sky, you struck the final blow, typing a command so powerful it shattered the very rulebook. Ban server owner reason, overridden by choice. The admin screamed, his form breaking into zeros and ones, collapsing into the void like deleted files. Steve, seeing the owner fall, dropped his sword and stumbled back. I had everything, he whispered. Alex looked at him, sorrow and strength in her voice. And you lost it because you tried to control what was never yours. Blocky stepped between them, growling protectively. Steve said nothing, then let the light take him. The world shimmered. The lobby faded. And suddenly, everyone was back, home. In the courtyard of Ua. The sky normal. The portal gone. The threat ended. Deku looked at you, the reader, and smiled. Thank you, he said softly. We never could have done it without you. Alex stepped forward too. You didn't just save us. You saved everything. Blocky nuzzled your side, letting out a soft rumble of gratitude. And then, as your body began to fade from their world, your job done, Deku gave one last wave. Wherever you go next, we'll remember you. And with that, you left the game. But this story, it's not over. Because somewhere, deep in the corrupted remnants of the server, a fragment of the owner's code twitched. And, something, darker, woke up. In the digital ashes of the broken server, buried beneath gigabytes of scattered code and corrupted terrain, a flicker of red pulsed. One line of code, one whisper in the silence. Recompile. From the data void, the shattered fragments of the server owner's consciousness spiraled, spinning like dead satellites, until they found something. Something worse than admin control. Something ancient, buried even deeper than the original Minecraft engine itself. The old code. Abandoned. Unused. Too dangerous. Too unpredictable. It was the very foundation of glitches, of Herobrine myths, Entity 303 legends, and other nightmares lost in the patch logs. And the server owner's broken data merged with it. Suddenly, the screen flickered. Error messages piled up. Command blocks cracked open on their own. Across worlds and servers, things began changing. Back at Ua, the calm after the storm was short-lived. Deku, Alex, and Blocky were helping the school recover. Glitches were gone. The portal sealed. Everything seemed normal, until Day 2 post-server war. A villager wandered into the city. Only, this one had no face. No trades. Just one message in the chat. He returns. Alex froze when she saw it. No. No. This can't be, he was deleted. You deleted him. Deku read the chat log again. Then he looked up. Unless, something brought him back. Suddenly, Blocky howled. His body jittered like corrupted chunks. His eyes flashed with glitch light again. Then the sky turned red. Thunder crackled. Not weather, console-level storm. A new rift tore open above the city, this one jagged, leaking shadows like corrupted biomes. From it, something stepped out. Tall, warped, the server owner, but no longer himself. His body was rewritten, twisted by the old code. His voice echoed like 1,000 admin logs overlapping. You patched me, but you forgot the root directory. The ground cracked beneath him. Every mob in the world, the peaceful ones, the hostile ones, they all froze. Their eyes turned red. Their bodies twisted into nightmare versions of themselves. Steve's final fragment, the legacy sword, shot up from the ground and flew into the new owner's hand. Only now, it wasn't just a sword. It was the root blade, a weapon fused with the old code itself. Alex whispered, her voice shaking. He's not just the server owner anymore. Deku finished the sentence, his fists clenched. He's become the final operator. And this time, he was rewriting the entire multiverse. Alex stepped back, her heart thudding as the sky rippled like a corrupted texture. He's rewriting the rules, she said, voice tight. Not just this world, every world connected to it. Deku's breath caught as the clouds above glitched, forming blocky letters that read. Merge. Reality_core to server_alpha. That's a command, he said slowly. He's merging this reality with the original server, the birthplace of Minecraft. Blocky roared, shaking off the distortion still buzzing through his scales. He crouched low, wings flaring, ready to defend them, but even he looked nervous. The energy pulsing from the final operator was primal, old, as if the game itself feared him. The sky cracked again, and this time, a massive sword descended like a meteor, pixelated at the tip, but real and burning with data fire at the hilt. The final operator caught it in one hand and lifted his other. A single whisper from him, and structures began tearing themselves apart. Cities folded into ruins. Forests rotted into blackened code. Deku clenched his fists, power flaring. But the operator wasn't done. He spoke a single name. Steve. From the torn horizon, a new form emerged. He was tall, more real than Pixel. Muscles under the iconic teal shirt and jeans. His eyes glowed with a ghostly blue light, and every step he took made the very terrain correct itself around him. His pickaxe shimmered with old enchantments, things no longer accessible in current updates. Alex gasped, and her knees buckled. No, it can't be. He's gone, I saw him die. Steve looked at her, and smiled. Hey, Lex. Her heart shattered. Deku moved between them instantly, shielding her, but Steve just tilted his head. So this is the new guy. Steve, Alex whispered. Why are you? How are you? Steve walked slowly, dragging his pickaxe behind him, sparks flying. You left, he said. You abandoned me. We built that world together, remember? You promised. I didn't abandon you, Alex snapped, pain in her voice. You changed. You became obsessed. I became powerful. His voice darkened. I ascended. I saw the real architecture beneath the surface. And you chose him. He pointed at Deku with disgust. This little hero wannabe. Please. You downgraded. Deku didn't flinch. You were gone. She's not yours. And if you think you can threaten her, or our world. Steve grinned wide. Oh, I don't need to threaten. I own the original server. I was its first user. The operator might command the system now, but I am the system's heart. A pulse rippled through the air. Suddenly, the real world began showing cracks. UA shimmered, the streets blockified. NPCs spawned in the background. The school morphed into a fortress made of obsidian and bedrock. The sky turned eternally dusk. You're in my domain now, Steve whispered, raising his pickaxe. And then he lunged. Deku barely blocked the swing, one for all flaring to max. Sparks flew. The ground cracked beneath their feet. Steve was fast, faster than expected. He fought like a player with infinite reach, combining combat logic with real strength. Deku grunted, ducked, countered, but Steve vanished and reappeared behind him. Alex joined in, her gadgets launching disruptor discs and net grenades. Steve caught one mid-air and crushed it in his fist. You still use toys. He laughed. You used to create worlds with me. Yeah, Alex said, eyes hard. And I'll build a new one without you. She pulled out a device they'd never used before, an override key designed to reset corrupted dimensions. It glowed faintly. Steve paused when he saw it. You kept that. She nodded. And I'm not afraid to use it. But before she could activate it, the final operator raised a hand, and time froze around them for a single beat. You don't get to reset anymore, he said, stepping beside Steve. This world is mine. She is his. Your choices have already been recorded in the changelog. Deku forced his body to move through the slowing code. You're both insane if you think we'll let you rewrite everything. Steve's face twitched. Oh, we're not rewriting. We're restoring. Back to the glory days. He slammed his pickaxe into the ground. A wave of pure code erupted, and suddenly, Deku, Alex, and Blocky were thrown backward, landing at the base of a massive obsidian tower with a command block thrown at the top. They looked up as thousands of mobs, zombie piglins, corrupted villagers, endermen with red eyes, began descending the hill. Alex groaned. So, phase 2. Deku stood, wiping blood from his lip. No. Final phase. He turned to her, fire in his eyes. We find the root. We pull their access. We cut off Steve's anchor to this world. And how do we find the root? She asked, pulling him close. Deku looked toward the throne, where Steve and the operator watched from above. We climb. Blocky roared, spreading his wings. The fight wasn't over. Not even close. Blocky launched into the air, wings cracking with lightning. Below him, Deku and Alex sprinted across. Terrain that kept shifting, grass turning to obsidian, then to lava, then flickering into ancient biomes thought lost to corrupted code. I'm locking the terrain as we run. Alex shouted, fingers flying across her gauntlet. Good, Deku called back, dodging an incoming fireball from a ghast-like beast with glitching limbs. We can't let the system override reality completely. Above, Steve and the final operator stood side by side at the top of the tower. Steve looked down with amusement. She's still so predictable, he muttered. The operator chuckled. She has heart. They all do. Steve raised a glowing command block from his belt. Let's break it. He smashed the block into the floor, and the world shifted. Suddenly, Deku and Alex weren't in a broken overworld anymore. They were inside the Void Realm, a place no player had ever survived. Blocks floated aimlessly in black nothingness. Glitches flew like ghosts in the air. The rules of physics screamed. Welcome to my failsafe zone, Steve's voice echoed around them. No commands. No power-ups. Just you. And me. Deku growled. Why are you doing this, Steve? You had a future. Steve appeared behind them, a flicker of light and code. She was my future, he said, motioning to Alex. Until you happened. Alex stepped forward, eyes burning. You were corrupted long before he showed up. You started talking to the system like it was your god. It is my god. Steve roared. It gave me everything. Infinite lives, creative mode, operator status. I was the chosen one. Suddenly, the sky cracked, and something even older stepped through. A blocky shadow, massive and draped in ancient armor, the original player. The operator and Steve both paused. No, Steve muttered. That's not possible. Alex gasped. It's the one who built the first seed. The one even Mojang never named. The original player hovered over the void, its voice deep, distorted, and layered. This realm was never meant for conquest, it said. You were given power, Steve. But not wisdom. Steve gritted his teeth. Stay out of this. You're obsolete. The figure lifted one hand, and every floating block around them reassembled into a glowing staircase leading to a glowing tree, the root of all servers. That's it, Deku whispered. The root. We can sever Steve's connection. But we'll have to go through both of them to reach it, Alex said, summoning her last glitch cannon. Blocky landed beside them, eyes fierce. Deku looked at her, then at the massive staircase. You ready? Alex smirked. Always. And they ran. Through storms of corrupted mobs, past code traps and shifting walls, toward the root glowing with the data of all worlds. Steve screamed in rage, diving down with his pickaxe trailing lava, and the final operator summoned 100 new glitches to block the path. But nothing would stop them now. Not until they reached the root. Not until they ended this. Deku's heart pounded as he leapt over a collapsing block, his foot narrowly missing the edge of the abyss beneath. He could hear Steve's maniacal laughter echoing, twisted and distorted by the glitch-ridden landscape. Alex stayed close by his side, her hand wrapped tightly around his wrist as they sprinted toward the root, the glowing tree that symbolized the very core of this corrupted reality. Behind them, Steve's voice boomed. You think you can stop me? The air crackled with energy, and Deku felt the pressure of his power bearing down on them like a wave ready to crash. "Keep moving," Alex shouted, her voice sharp with urgency. They could see the root now, a massive, shimmering tree that seemed to grow out of the void itself, its branches twisting and flickering like lines of code rewriting themselves. The final operator materialized before them, his glitchy form now fully visible, a horrifying amalgamation of pixels and data, a sentient error code with no true form. With a flick of his hand, dozens of floating blocks transformed into armored mobs, charging at them with terrifying speed. Deku's eyes narrowed. He was exhausted, his body already worn from battling countless monsters and fighting Steve's twisted vision of reality, but he couldn't stop now. He couldn't let Alex and Blocky down. With a burst of strength, he charged forward, launching himself into the air as One for All surged through him, his fist crashing into one of the armored mobs. It shattered into fragments of code, disintegrating as if it had never existed. "Nice," Alex called out, stepping to the side to avoid a flying arrow that came from another mob. She flipped a switch on her gauntlet, sending out a pulse of energy that knocked a group of enemies off balance. But Steve wasn't finished. With a snap of his fingers, he summoned a massive storm of pixelated lightning, raining down from the sky with explosive force. Deku dove, pulling Alex to the ground, and the two of them shielded Blocky from the onslaught. "Steve," Alex screamed, "you've lost your way. This isn't who you are." For a moment, Steve paused, his form glitching violently. "You, don't tell me who I am," he growled. His face twisted with rage as he floated higher into the air, summoning a giant, glitched portal above them. The ground trembled, and the air thickened with malicious energy. The portal opened wider, revealing a chaotic, pixelated void beyond, endless waves of corrupted monsters, swarming, crawling, and screeching as they poured through. "Get to the root now," Alex yelled, pulling Deku to his feet. "If we don't shut it down, the whole world will collapse into chaos." Deku nodded. They had to make it. No matter what. With one final push, they sprinted toward the root, the giant tree glowing ever brighter, casting light across the twisted void. Steve screeched in fury as he reached down, sending the final wave of monsters to stop them. The ground cracked beneath them as they reached the tree, and Steve's voice echoed from all directions. "You won't win. You never could." Alex ran ahead, reaching the base of the root. "I'll hack into the core," she said quickly, pulling out a device from her belt. It was a small, sleek tool, almost like a data terminal, designed to infiltrate and disrupt code. Her fingers flew across its surface, and the device hummed with power. The tree's glow shifted, flickering in response. Deku turned to face the oncoming horde, his fists tightening. "I've got your back," he shouted to Alex. With One for All coursing through him once again, Deku threw himself into the fray, fighting through mobs that came at him from all angles. Every punch, every kick, shattered the corrupted creatures into streams of code and debris. He was faster now, more in control of his power. His movements were fluid, each strike more precise as if he was synchronizing with the world around him. Blocky leapt into the air, spitting fire at the incoming monsters, burning them away with ease. Alex's gauntlet beeped frantically. Almost there, just a little longer. Deku gritted his teeth as a massive creature, a glitchy version of a wither, appeared before him. Its three heads twisted and snarled, shooting beams of dark energy toward him. He dodged one, then blocked the next with his arm, his muscles screaming in protest. With a roar, he surged forward, landing a powerful punch that sent the creature crumbling into pixels. "Deku!" Alex shouted. "Now! It's done." The root pulsed with light as Alex's device finally cracked the code, sending a shockwave of energy rippling through the ground. The entire void realm began to destabilize. "No!" Steve screamed from above. You can't undo this." But it was too late. With one final pulse, the root unleashed a massive burst of energy, sending a shockwave that tore through the air, erasing the corrupted reality. The world around them flickered. The corrupted mobs vanished. The sky shifted from a storm of pixels to a clear, bright horizon. The void realm was gone. Deku stood panting, his body aching, but alive. Alex collapsed beside him, her fingers still clutched around the now deactivated device. "We did it," she whispered, exhaustion written across her face. But Deku's gaze remained fixed on the sky, the sense of unease still gnawing at him. "Not yet," he murmured. And before either of them could say more, Steve's voice, now nothing but a distorted echo, carried across the wind. This isn't over, Deku, Alex, you've only seen a glimpse of what's coming. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was clear, Steve was still out there, somewhere. And if they thought this battle was the end, they were wrong. Deku clenched his fists, his body still trembling from the intensity of the battle. The echo of Steve's voice hung in the air like a warning. He could feel the weight of the threat that still lingered, that gnawing feeling that Steve wasn't done, far from it. He turned to Alex, who was sitting against the root, her exhaustion visible but her eyes sharp and focused. He's right, Deku said quietly, more to himself than to anyone else. This isn't over. Alex nodded, wiping the sweat from her brow. We stopped him from warping this world, but that doesn't mean he's gone for good. We need to prepare for whatever he's planning next. Deku exhaled slowly, glancing at the sky that was beginning to return to its normal state. The once glitchy horizon now appeared clear, peaceful, but the uncertainty still hung over him like a dark cloud. I don't know if we can keep fighting forever, Alex. This is bigger than anything we've faced before. Alex stood up, brushing dirt off her clothes, and walked over to him. She reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly. We don't have to face it alone, Deku. We've got each other, and Blocky. And we'll figure this out, like we always do. Deku looked at her, his chest tightening with both relief and a deep, burning resolve. Alex's faith in him, in them, made him stronger. It reminded him that they could overcome anything, together. You're right, Deku said, offering her a small smile. We've come this far. I won't stop now. Before they could continue their conversation, Blocky let out a soft growl, its scales bristling as it turned its head toward a distant horizon. Deku's eyes followed its gaze, narrowing. A faint shimmering, a rippling distortion in the air, caught his attention. Not again, Alex murmured, taking a step back. The distortion grew stronger, more defined. From the ripple emerged a figure, tall and cloaked in shadows. The world around them seemed to warp as the figure stepped forward, its presence felt even before it fully materialized. Blocky growled, stepping protectively in front of Alex and Deku. The figure stepped into full view, and Deku's breath caught in his throat. It was Steve, but something was different. His body was no longer glitching like before, his form solid and powerful, radiating a dark energy that made the air feel thick with menace. His eyes were glowing with a sickly green light, and in his hand, he wielded a blocky staff that seemed to crackle with unstable power. I told you, Steve said, his voice low and almost soothing, like a whisper in the wind. You've only seen a fraction of what I can do. Deku's pulse quickened, his muscles tensing. This wasn't the Steve they had known, the Steve Alex had once loved. This was someone consumed by something darker, a thirst for revenge that had twisted his very being. Steve, Alex shouted, stepping forward, her eyes filled with pain and disbelief. What happened to you? Why are you doing this? Steve's lips curled into a twisted smirk. You really don't get it, do you, Alex? His voice was filled with coldness, with hatred. You left me. You abandoned everything we had. And now I'll make you see how much you've lost. Alex flinched at his words, a pang of guilt flashing in their eyes, but Deku quickly stepped in front of them, his stance protective. Whatever happened between you two, Steve, Deku said, his voice hard, this isn't the way to handle it. People can change. You can change. Steve laughed, the sound dark and unsettling. Change. He shook his head. I've become something far greater than what you could ever understand, Deku. And now, I'll show you what true power is. The air shifted around them, charged with a heavy, crackling energy. Steve raised his staff high, and the ground beneath them trembled. Blocks of corrupted, pixelated stone began to rise from the ground, forming a massive wall that surrounded them in an instant. A portal, dark and swirling with energy, opened behind Steve, pulsing with raw destructive power. Alex's eyes widened. He's opening another rift. He wants to drag us into his world, into his control. Deku clenched his fists. Not if I can help it. Before Steve could react, Deku dashed forward, his speed almost a blur as One for All exploded within him. He punched toward the center of the portal, his fist glowing with energy. But as soon as his attack collided with the portal, the dark energy shot out, sending him flying back. Alex rushed to his side, helping him up as Steve's laughter echoed around them. Did you really think you could stop me? Steve taunted, his voice warped by the energy of the rift. This world, it's mine. And soon, your world will be too. We're not done yet, Deku said, his voice low and steady. Not while I'm still standing. Blocky let out a deafening roar, its flames roaring to life, and charged at Steve, breathing fire toward him. Steve raised his staff, summoning a barrier that blocked the attack, but the heat from Blocky's flames caused the distortion around the portal to flicker. Deku, Alex, Blocky's voice echoed in their minds, the connection they shared deepening. Together, we can stop this. But we need to focus. Alex looked at Deku, their expression resolute. Blocky's right. We can't keep fighting blindly. We need to shut down the portal, now. Deku nodded, his mind racing. He glanced at Steve, whose focus was now entirely on the portal. This was their chance. On 3, Deku said to Alex, his voice calm and steady. We need to hit him from both sides. Alex's eyes met his. Got it. Let's do this. 1, Deku started, his body already surging with power. 2, Alex added, pulling out another one of her gadgets, ready for the final push. 3, they both shouted, launching toward Steve. Blocky, in sync with them, charged at the rift, flames billowing around its body, while Deku and Alex raced in opposite directions, closing in on Steve from both sides. As they attacked, the ground beneath them shattered, and the world trembled. No! Steve screamed as the power of their combined attacks collided with him. The portal began to flicker wildly, its energy destabilizing. But Steve wasn't finished. In one last desperate act, he tried to amplify the rift's power, unleashing a pulse of dark energy so intense it sent shockwaves through the ground, threatening to swallow them all. Deku's eyes widened. He couldn't let it end like this. Not for Alex, not for Blocky. And not for the world. With every ounce of his strength, he leapt toward the heart of the portal, his fist clenched. One for all, full force. A blinding explosion of light filled the sky, and the rift began to collapse, its destructive energy swirling around them. Steve's screams were drowned out as the rift folded in on itself, and everything went dark. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, slowly, the world around them began to stabilize. The storm clouds cleared. The distortion in the sky began to fade. Alex, breathless and bruised, turned to Deku. Is it over? Deku looked at the remnants of the shattered rift, still unsure. But as the sky cleared and the first rays of dawn broke through, he allowed himself to hope. Not over, he said, but we've taken the first step. Together. The morning sun slowly bathed the world in light, painting the horizon with soft hues of orange and gold. The air, once heavy with the oppressive energy of the rift, now felt lighter. The distorted ground where Steve's portal had once stood was now a mere shadow of its former self, a scar upon the land, but the world was beginning to heal. The calm was almost deceptive, beneath it, something still lingered. Deku, still panting from the battle, stood tall, though his body was sore. He looked at Alex, who was standing beside him, her eyes scanning the horizon. Blocky hovered protectively nearby, its wings flapping slowly, still carrying the remnants of the flames from its earlier attack. I don't trust it, Deku muttered, wiping blood from his lip. Steve is gone for now, but there's something else at play here. Alex nodded, her hand resting on her chin as she analyzed the surroundings. He was never the type to let things go easily. If he's gone, it's only because he's biding his time. As if to prove her point, the ground beneath them trembled once more. This time, it wasn't the distortion of Steve's power, it was a different force altogether. A dark, unsettling presence loomed on the horizon, and this time, it wasn't the glitchy energy they had just fought against. No, this was something older, something deeper. From the edge of the forest, a figure emerged. It was not Steve this time, but something far worse. The figure was cloaked in darkness, its body silhouetted against the light. Its face, hidden beneath a mask of obsidian, glowed with an eerie red light. It moved with a quiet, unnerving grace, as though it were more shadow than flesh. But there was something familiar about it, a presence that tugged at the back of Deku's mind, a connection that felt like a memory just out of reach. Alex's breath caught in her throat. No, it can't be. The figure's voice cut through the silence like a blade. I've waited a long time for this. Deku felt his heart skip a beat. That voice, it sounded almost like a distant echo, a voice from a past long buried. Who are you? Deku demanded, stepping forward, his stance wide, ready for whatever came next. The figure stepped into the light, and in a flash, everything clicked into place. Deku's eyes widened in disbelief. "Zack," Alex whispered, the name barely escaping her lips, but the weight of it hung in the air. Zack, Alex's brother, thought to be lost in the chaos of their world's collapse. But here he stood, no longer the person Alex had known, but something entirely different. His eyes glowed an unnatural red, his body radiating with dark energy. "I was lost once," Zack said, his tone cold and hollow. "But I've found my purpose now, and it doesn't involve either of you." Alex stumbled back, her face pale. "Zack, how? What happened to you?" Zack's lips curled into a sinister smile, the mask of his true self beginning to crack. "You left me behind, Alex. You went off, you found new friends, you moved on, and you forgot about me. You forgot me. And now, you will learn what it feels like to lose everything." The energy around him intensified, a dark aura spreading out like a living thing, infecting the very air they breathed. Deku's heart raced. This wasn't just some glitch, this was something far more dangerous. He could feel it in his bones. "You've become a part of this world's corruption," Alex said, her voice trembling, but there was a fire in her eyes now, a spark of defiance. "You've let it take control of you." Zack's laugh was hollow, empty. "Control. I've embraced it. The darkness is power, Alex. Power you'll never understand, because you're still clinging to your naive notions of good and evil. But in the end, it's all about survival. The strong survive, and the weak perish." Deku's eyes flicked to Alex, who seemed torn. Her brother, the person she had once cared for deeply, was now a shadow of his former self, consumed by something far darker. "Don't listen to him, Alex," Deku said firmly. "We're stronger than this. We can save him." But Alex shook her head, tears glistening in her eyes. "I don't know if I can, Deku. I don't know if he's even the same person anymore." Zack took a step forward, the ground cracking beneath his feet as his power surged. "This world is mine now, Alex. And I'll make sure you understand what happens when you turn your back on family." The air thickened, and suddenly, a burst of energy erupted from Zack, sending shockwaves across the land. Deku barely managed to dodge the blast, rolling across the ground before getting to his feet. Alex, with a quick motion, summoned a series of blocks around herself, creating a temporary shield, but the force of the explosion still sent her skidding backward. "This is it," Zack said, his voice now a guttural growl. "You either join me, or I make you watch as everything you love burns." Deku was already on the move, charging toward Zack with the full force of One for All coursing through his body. But before he could reach him, a barrier of black energy shot up, slamming him backward with a violent force. "Is that all you've got?" Zack taunted, his expression twisted into a mocking grin. "You're weak, Deku. And you, Alex, don't think I've forgotten you. You both will bow before me. The time for kindness is over." Deku's body ached, the pain from his previous battle still fresh. But this was something different. They had no choice but to face this new enemy, Alex's brother, corrupted by darkness, and the embodiment of a twisted new order that threatened everything. He looked at Alex again, her face stricken with the weight of what was happening. "Alex, we can't lose him. He's still your brother, deep down. We have to reach him." Tears streamed down Alex's face, but her resolve was beginning to return. She stood taller, wiping away the last of her doubts. "I won't let him destroy everything. I don't care what he's become, he's still my brother." With a deep breath, Alex and Deku exchanged a determined look. This battle wasn't over. It was only just beginning. As the dark aura around Zack intensified, a storm began to brew above them, the sky swirling with ominous clouds. Their journey had taken them far, but now, the real fight for their world, and for Alex's brother, was about to begin. The air was thick with tension as the swirling storm above seemed to draw energy from the very world around them, a dark void that threatened to swallow everything. Zack's power surged again, ripples of corrupted energy expanding in all directions. It was clear, this wasn't just a fight for survival anymore, it was a fight for Alex's very soul, and for the future of the world they were fighting to protect. Deku's fists clenched. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Every move he made was a calculated risk. Zack was powerful, and his corruption ran deep. But Deku wasn't one to back down. He'd fought for so much already, and he wasn't about to stop now. "Alex," Deku said, his voice steady but urgent, we need to combine our strengths. Together, we can break through his defenses. Alex's eyes shimmered with a mix of fear and determination. I don't know if I can, I've seen what he's become. I don't even know if I can reach him. You can, Deku said, stepping toward her, offering his hand. I believe in you, Alex. You believe in him, don't you? You've always had that bond. It's not gone. You can still save him. Alex hesitated, her eyes flicking to Zack, whose twisted grin grew wider at the exchange. You really think he'll let you win, Alex? He mocked, his voice cold. You can't save him. He's gone, and you've let him slip through your fingers. Now, it's time for you to join him in the darkness. Deku gritted his teeth, ready to launch himself forward, but Alex stepped forward, raising her hand, signaling him to wait. I won't let you do this, Zack. Alex's voice broke through the darkness surrounding them, a faint shimmer of her old strength coming back. I won't let you tear everything apart. You're my brother, but this isn't you anymore. You've let this world change you, but I'll fight to remind you of who you really are. Zack's laugh echoed through the sky, mocking her words. Who I am nothing but the darkness you left behind. You abandoned me, and now, you'll pay for that mistake. All of you will. A pulse of energy erupted from Zack's chest, crashing into the ground and sending a shockwave that sent Alex and Deku flying. The air around them grew dense, like they were suffocating under the weight of his power. But Alex, despite the overwhelming fear clawing at her chest, stood her ground. Her eyes locked onto her brother's, desperate but resolute. I know you're still in there, Zack, she called out, her voice rising above the roar of the storm. You can fight this. You can come back. Zack's expression flickered for just a moment, a brief glimmer of the brother Alex had known. But then it was gone, replaced by a twisted snarl. Enough of this. You had your chance. Now you'll witness the end. In that instant, Zack unleashed a wave of dark energy that swallowed the battlefield whole, forcing both Deku and Alex to their knees as the pressure nearly crushed them. The land cracked beneath them, the environment warping and distorting as the very fabric of reality seemed to unravel. A rift opened in the sky above, and from it, shadows poured forth, like a flood of corrupted creatures born of the void. Alex gasped for air, her legs trembling as she struggled to rise. Her hands trembled, but she clenched her fists, feeling the surge of power she hadn't felt in what seemed like forever. She could hear Deku's voice in the back of her mind, urging her forward. You can do this, Alex. We've come this far. We're stronger than this. Her breath steadying, Alex looked at Deku, a spark of determination igniting in her heart. She had to do this. For herself. For her brother. For everything they had fought for. I won't give up on you, Zack, she whispered to herself, as much as to him. With a sharp breath, Alex raised her hand. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew this was the only chance they had. A faint light began to emanate from her, pulsing with power, and the blocks around her began to glow with a soft, comforting warmth. Her power, her connection to the world they had fought to save, was awakening, more powerful than ever. Deku watched as Alex's light flared brighter, realizing she was tapping into something greater. With renewed strength, he stood, channeling his own power, gathering it all into his fist. One for all thrummed within him, building with every passing second. Together, they were unstoppable. With a roar, Deku launched himself at Zack, his fists crackling with energy. But this time, he wasn't alone. Alex followed right behind him, her own power merging with his in a brilliant clash of light against darkness. The two forces collided with an explosion that shook the earth, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Zack stumbled back, momentarily stunned by the force of their combined attack. But his eyes narrowed, his dark power flaring up around him as he steadied himself. You think this will stop me? Zack sneered, his voice filled with fury. I've become the darkness. You can't defeat me, Alex. But Alex's eyes were clear now, no longer filled with doubt. I can defeat you. I don't care what you've become. You're still my brother. With a final, defiant cry, Alex and Deku pushed forward, the light of their powers exploding outward, the energy clashing with the dark aura that Zack had become. The battlefield seemed to bend, reality warping around the epic struggle. And then, as if the very universe had held its breath, a final surge of energy erupted from them both. The ground shook violently, and the sky above cracked wide open, the rift Zack had opened beginning to close. For a moment, everything was still, silent. The only sound was the distant rumble of thunder, as if the world itself was holding its breath. When the dust settled, Zack was kneeling, his body trembling. His glowing red eyes flickered, the dark energy surrounding him flickering like a dying flame. Alex stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest, her voice quiet but firm. Zack. For a brief moment, it looked like the brother she had once known was there, his features softening, the rage leaving his face. But then, the darkness surged again, more violent than before, and Zack's mask shattered. He let out a cry, a sound of pure anguish, before the energy around him erupted in one last burst. With a final, devastating crash, the ground split beneath them all. The darkness vanished, and Zack, once consumed by the void, was gone. Alex stood still, her heart heavy with loss, yet filled with something else, something she couldn't explain. Was it hope? Perhaps. She didn't know. But she'd fought for him, and for the world. And in the end, that was all she could do. Deku, standing beside her, placed a hand on her shoulder. You did everything you could, Alex. We all did. As the remnants of the battle faded, the world began to heal once more. The winds that had once howled with fury now settled into a mournful calm. The broken ground around them, once consumed by the void, slowly began to heal, the cracks closing as the remnants of the battle faded into the background. The rift in the sky was gone, its darkness dissipating, leaving only the fading glow of the world's recovery. Alex stood still, her body battered and bruised, but her heart felt heavier than ever. The fight was over, but there was no victory to celebrate. Her brother was gone, consumed by the very darkness that had twisted him into a monster. She had tried, fought with everything she had to save him, but in the end, it hadn't been enough. Deku remained silent beside her, his own gaze cast down at the ground. He understood the depth of her grief, the emptiness that could only come from losing someone so close. He reached out, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder once again. We did all we could, Alex, he said softly. You gave him every chance to come back. But sometimes, the darkness, it's too powerful. Alex closed her eyes, the tears she had been holding back finally spilling down her cheeks. She had hoped that Zack would return to her, to the person she had once known. But it seemed that hope had been shattered along with the very fabric of the world they had fought to protect. I know, she whispered, her voice cracking. But it still hurts. I didn't want to lose him. Not like this. Deku didn't speak again, understanding that words could never fill the void of loss. Instead, he stood with her, allowing her the space to grieve, the stillness of the moment enveloping them. The sun began to rise, its light casting a warm glow over the horizon. For a brief moment, the world seemed peaceful, like the storm had passed, and everything was going to be okay. But Alex knew better. She knew that even though the battle was over, the scars it left would remain. As the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds, Alex turned her gaze toward the horizon, where the remnants of the battle lay in the distance. The world was healing, yes, but it wasn't the same world it had been before. It had changed. They had changed. We'll rebuild, Alex said, her voice steadying as she wiped away her tears. For everyone who was lost. For Zack. For the future. Deku nodded in agreement. We'll rebuild. Together. It was then that the faint sound of movement reached their ears. Both of them turned to see a figure walking toward them through the clearing mist. At first, it was a blur, indistinct in the morning light. But as the figure drew closer, Alex's heart skipped a beat. It was Steve. His once familiar face was now hardened, his eyes weary from the countless battles and the weight of the choices he had made. His expression was unreadable as he stopped before them, the tension in the air palpable. Alex's breath caught in her throat. Steve. He said nothing at first, his eyes locking onto hers. There was a moment of silence, a heavy one, before he finally spoke, his voice low and filled with something she couldn't quite place. I never wanted it to come to this, Steve said, his gaze briefly flicking to the ruined landscape behind him. But I couldn't let him keep going down the path he was on. And I couldn't let you or anyone else stop me from what I had to do. Alex swallowed hard, her chest tight. She wanted to say something, but the words felt like they were stuck in her throat. Steve had been her love, her partner, her everything. But now, after everything that had happened, things had changed. She didn't know what was left between them, what they could be after all this. I know what you're thinking, Steve continued, his eyes darkening. But you have to understand, I didn't want this. I didn't want to become the villain. But when you love someone, when you're tied to them, sometimes you end up doing things you can't take back. Deku stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. It's not too late, Steve. We all make mistakes. But that doesn't mean we can't find redemption. It's not about being right or wrong anymore. It's about moving forward. Steve's eyes flickered to Deku, then back to Alex. He seemed to hesitate, as if searching for something he couldn't quite grasp. I don't know if I can ever make up for everything I've done, he said quietly. But I want to try. Alex looked at him for a long moment, her heart heavy with emotions she couldn't untangle. There were so many questions, so much hurt, and yet, beneath it all, there was a flicker of something she couldn't ignore. Maybe we can try together, she said softly, the words carrying more weight than she had intended. But it's not going to be easy, Steve. We've both changed. He nodded solemnly, his eyes filled with regret and determination. I know. But I'm willing to try. If you are. There was a pause, the weight of the decision hanging in the air. The silence stretched, filled only with the distant echoes of the battle's aftermath, the world slowly beginning to rebuild itself. In the end, it wasn't about fixing everything that had been broken, it was about moving forward, together. One step at a time. Alex took a deep breath, her eyes lifting to the rising sun. Then we start now, she said, her voice stronger than before. And so, together, they began to rebuild, not just the world around them, but the bond that had once been broken. It wouldn't be easy, but they were determined to try. And somewhere, deep inside, Alex knew that hope wasn't lost, not yet. As the days passed, the world around them began to show signs of recovery. The skies, once darkened by the rifts and the threat of monsters, began to clear. The blocky forest slowly regenerated, trees sprouting anew from the pixelated soil, while the remnants of the shattered landscape began to heal, their cracks and scars filling in like the world itself was stitching itself back together. Yet, despite the world's physical healing, a lingering tension clung to the air, heavy and unspoken. Alex found herself often standing in the same spot where she had faced off against Zack, staring out into the quiet landscape. She wanted to believe it was over, but every time she closed her eyes, his image would flash before her, a memory of the brother she had tried so desperately to save. It wasn't just the world that was healing, she was too. But it would take time. Time she wasn't sure she had. Deku, ever the steady presence at her side, noticed her silences and knew the struggle she faced. He tried not to push, but his concern was always apparent, his eyes following her as she wandered the ruins, her thoughts heavy with the past. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, casting a warm, orange glow over the reconstructed courtyard of UA, Alex sat on the steps, her legs crossed. Blocky lay beside her, its tail lazily swishing back and forth, its eyes half-lidded in a peaceful rest. Deku approached her, his footsteps light on the grass. He sat down beside her, the sound of his breathing steady as he too watched the sunset. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked after a moment, his voice soft but filled with the care that she had grown used to over the past days. Alex chuckled bitterly, her gaze still locked on the horizon. "I was just thinking about everything. How everything changed in an instant. How we can't undo what's been done, but somehow, we still have to live with it." Deku nodded. "Yeah, I get it. We can't change the past, but that doesn't mean the future's lost." She sighed deeply, leaning back on her hands, her head tilting slightly toward him. "I know. I just wish there was some way to make it right. To bring Zack back, to make him see that he didn't have to go down that path." "You can't blame yourself for that," Deku said, his voice firm but gentle. "Zack made his own choices. You gave him every chance. But he chose a different path. And sometimes, we just have to accept that." The words stung, but they were true. She closed her eyes, taking a slow breath, letting the weight of it all settle on her chest. "I don't know if I can ever truly forgive myself," she whispered. "For not stopping him sooner, for not realizing, for not being there when he needed me most." Deku's hand found hers, his grip steady and comforting. "You were there. You fought for him until the very end. That's what matters. Not whether you could have saved him, but that you didn't give up on him." Alex squeezed his hand, the warmth of his touch grounding her. "I wish I could have saved him. I wish I could have done something differently." "You did everything you could," Deku said softly. "Sometimes. The hardest part is accepting that not everyone can be saved. She nodded, the tears she had been holding back threatening to spill. It felt like a weight had been lifted, but there was still so much grief in her heart, a grief she wasn't sure she'd ever fully heal from. She looked at Deku, her heart swelling with gratitude. He had been there for her when she thought she was beyond repair, when the world felt like it was crumbling around her. "You've been a really good friend, Deku," Alex said quietly, her voice full of raw emotion. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Deku turned to her, his expression soft, his gaze sincere. "You've been there for me too. I'm not just your friend, Alex. I'm your partner. And I always will be." Alex smiled faintly, her heart swelling with warmth. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a while, she felt like maybe, just maybe, it would be okay. They would face whatever came next, together. But just as they shared that quiet moment, the air around them seemed to shift. A cold, unnatural gust of wind swept through the courtyard, causing Blocky to stir, its head jerking up as it growled low. Alex's senses went on high alert, and she immediately stood, pulling Deku to his feet. "What was that?" she muttered, her eyes scanning the area. Deku's face turned serious, his eyes narrowing. "It's a warning. Something's coming." Before either of them could react further, a figure appeared from the shadows at the edge of the courtyard, a silhouette framed by the darkening sky. It was tall, cloaked in a black robe that swirled like mist around its figure, and in its hand, it held a staff made of obsidian, jagged and ominous. The figure stepped forward, the soft scrape of their boots on the stone steps echoing in the sudden silence. "I see the heroes are still trying to hold the pieces together," a deep voice rasped from beneath the hood. "But all your efforts are in vain." Alex stepped forward, her muscles tense. "Who are you?" The figure's hood tilted slightly as if it was observing them. "You've forgotten me, I see. How typical." Then, slowly, the figure lifted its hood, revealing a face that made Alex's heart freeze in her chest. It was Steve, but it wasn't the Steve she knew. His face was scarred, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light, his features twisted with a dark, vengeful energy. "I'm not the man you once knew," Steve said, his voice bitter. "That Steve died the moment you betrayed me, Alex. The moment you chose him over me." Deku stepped forward, his fists clenching at his sides. "Steve, what happened to you? This isn't you." Steve's eyes narrowed, and the cold, malevolent smile that spread across his face made Alex's stomach turn. "Oh, but it is. The hero's mask can only hide so much. And now, I will destroy everything you've built. Starting with you, Alex." Alex's heart pounded in her chest as she stared at Steve, the weight of his betrayal settling deep within her. The man she had once loved was gone, replaced by a hollow, twisted version of himself. But she wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not after everything they'd fought for. "We'll stop you, Steve," she said, her voice steady, even in the face of his hatred. "We'll fight for the world. And we'll fight for the people you've hurt." Steve's smile widened. "You can try, but you'll never be ready for what's coming next." And with that, the dark figure raised his staff, the ground shaking beneath their feet as the first of many storms began to gather on the horizon. The battle wasn't over. It had only just begun. Steve raised his staff high, a dark pulse of energy crackling through the air. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the once serene courtyard seemed to twist in response, warping and distorting as if reality itself was unraveling. The winds picked up, howling fiercely as if the world was protesting against the darkness Steve was summoning. "Deku, get ready," Alex shouted, her voice barely audible over the raging wind. She could feel the power radiating from Steve, dark and oppressive, and she knew this wouldn't be an easy fight. But even as she prepared herself, a strange unease settled deep in her gut. Something wasn't right. Steve wasn't just any villain, he was once her partner, someone who knew her better than anyone else. And the way he was standing there, cloaked in that sinister power, it felt like they were facing not just a physical battle but a war for their very souls. Deku stepped forward, his expression hardening. "We won't let you destroy everything we've worked for, Steve." Steve's eyes glinted with malice as he lowered his staff, and in that instant, the temperature dropped drastically. A surge of dark energy erupted from the ground, sending jagged blocks of obsidian soaring into the air, colliding with the stone walls. Blocky let out a roar, but even the dragon seemed hesitant, sensing the immense power radiating from their former ally turned foe. You don't understand, Deku, Steve spat, his voice now cold, venomous. This isn't about power. This is about revenge. You two think you can stop me? After everything you've taken from me. Alex's heart clenched at the words. She had never meant to hurt him. She had never wanted to lose him. But here they were, caught in a battle that seemed to have no end in sight. Steve, please. This isn't you. She pleaded, her voice breaking through the chaos. We can still fix this. We can still. No, Steve interrupted, his voice rising in fury. It's too late for that. You left me once, Alex. You chose him. And now, I'll show you the price for your betrayal. Before she could react, Steve slammed his staff into the ground, and a massive shockwave blasted through the courtyard, sending Alex and Deku flying backward. They crashed into the ground, pain shooting through their bodies as the world spun around them. Alex! Deku shouted, struggling to his feet as the ground continued to quake. But just as they tried to regroup, a new sound echoed through the air, a crackling, eerie noise that seemed to come from all directions. Alex's eyes widened in shock as a series of glowing, jagged rifts began to open all around them, each one pulsing with dark energy. This isn't just about us anymore, Deku muttered, his eyes wide with realization. He's tearing apart the fabric of reality itself. If we don't stop him. Alex didn't need to hear the rest. She was already on her feet, pulling Deku up with her. The stakes had never been higher. Their fight wasn't just to save the world anymore. It was to save everything, everything they knew, everything they loved, from falling apart. But as she stared at Steve, his eyes glowing with a terrifying intensity, Alex knew the hardest battle was yet to come. With a final, deafening roar, the rifts expanded, and a wave of darkness surged toward them. Alex and Deku barely had time to react as the world around them seemed to implode. And just as it seemed like all hope was lost, everything went dark. The screen cut to black. And that's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed part 2. Let's set a like target of 40 likes on this video, I know you guys can do it. Should I continue this story? Let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.